Welcome back to more triathlon talk with Set Face Triathlon. Myself, Ryan Faulkner. Glad to be here, and we'll be talking about training for the heat. Now, this kind of applies to other races too, because we'll kind of get to this in the last bullet point. But even if you're not doing a race that's in the heat, say you're doing a race at altitude. Ironman Boulder was a little bit of an issue before they canned the race. It was in June, so it wasn't as hot, but it was at altitude. But training for heat and getting adapted for heat could also be applicable to altitude training. We'll go into that a little bit more. So it's not just hot races. You know, you got Ironman Chattanooga usually in September 2014. High was in the mid 70s. Last year it was 95 degrees. A couple of years before that was in the hundreds. So races you might think are going to happen during a time of year that it's not going to be extremely warm and hot may or may not be applicable. But in the end, if you're going to be training during the summer, doing heat training will add to your advantage either way. Whether the race is going to be heat, it's going to altitude, it's sea level, and there's not a problem. Maybe it's in Florida, it's not that hot, but it's a little humid. Being adapted and being ready for it is an integral part of training and being race ready. And the tips I want to go over to make sure that there are opportunities, you're doing it right if you're going to be training for the heat. Because the last thing you want to do is train normally like you would, get to a race like Ironman Chattanooga in 2019, 2 weeks out, forecast is in the 90s or the hundreds. You're thinking, I'm not ready for this. This is going to be a problem. So these are some things you could do to be ready for the race and not get to the race day and being totally caught off guard or toes. And like I said, it's applicable. You know, Ironman 743 Boulder, that is in August. And even when I did it in 2018, it wasn't that hot. Maybe it gets in the low 80s. It's just not that humid, but you are at elevation, you are at altitude, there's a little bit of reduction. So it's applicable for a lot of different races, just races that are going to be in heat of the summer or anything like that. So training for the heat, you have two things you're kind of looking for. You're looking to increase your blood volume and you're looking to improve your responses to heat while you're working in your training. So I've done other videos on what to do during the race in response to high heat, things you can do to kind of keep core temperature down, all kinds of other stuff. These are the things you can be doing in training well in advance of the race to make sure that you have got these two goals in mind if you're doing your training. Some important things to keep in mind, though. You can do these things, but you want to make sure that you're doing it at the right time. If you're already stressed on time, you're already kind of beat up, you're already kind of burning the candle both ends, doing adaptive heat training is probably not the best, smartest move, because you're going to add more stress to the body and you're going to be even more fatigued and you're going to cause problems. So make sure you're in a good spot and you're doing it at the right time. So we're going to go over a few of these things. So to increase the blood volume, and we're going to be very specific, doing these workouts not during high intense sessions. So you don't want to be doing it in the heat necessarily. If you're doing threshold runs, you're doing power intervals on the bike or anything like that, you don't want to include heat as an additional stressor in those races or in those workouts, because those workouts are trying to hit key metrics, trying to hit speed, trying to hit high heart rate, but you're going to be muted if you're out there doing it in the heat. If you're doing it on a hot summer day and you're doing intervals around the track, it's just not going to work out well. You're going to not meet your workout goals. You're not going to move your VO2 max. You're not going to improve your fitness because you're going to be dealing with heat, and it's going to compound, and it's not necessarily going to produce positive adaptations. So make sure you're doing this. There's two opportunities to work on increasing your blood volume, and we're going to look at the first one being high intensity sessions. So you can go out, you can do your intervals, you can do your running, you can do a high power session on indoor on the trainer or something like that. But if you have access to a sauna, or maybe get a room like really, really, really warm, or put some heaters in a room or something like that. So after you do your high intensity sessions, for 15 to 30 minutes, you go and you sit in a high heat area, sauna area or something like that. Do not hydrate immediately after the workout. So during the workout, you know, if you want to hydrate and everything, that's great. But after you're done with the workout, no rehydration. You can have a little bit maybe of a snack or something like that. But immediately after the workout, go in a sauna or a heated area, something like that, and just sit and chill for 15, 30 minutes. Maybe start at 15 minutes and then kind of work your way up to 30 minutes. And this is something you could be doing over time. Do it periodization. Don't Don't just do it all the time for the entire training cycle. Maybe pick a good 3 to 4 weeks in your bulk phase of your training that you have times and opportunities to go in and do some heat training. You want to try to get it as close to your event as possible so you get the maximum effect, benefits as close to your race as possible. You do not want to be doing this during your race prep phase, the 3 to 4 weeks before the race. You want 4 weeks before, you want to be doing it, but that little window right there, race prep and then taper, you do not want to be doing heat training because you want to be soaking all this up and being recovered for the race. So timing is everything. So right after a high intense workout, go 15, 30 minutes in a sauna. And after that session is done, and then you slowly rehydrate. Don't just go hammer all the liquids you can find right after you hit the sauna, just waterlog yourself and be walking around all sloshed. Over 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours, rehydrate smartly and appropriately, refuel, get all cleaned up and everything. So the key is high intensity session. Afterwards, immediately go to your sauna or hot spot or whatever, put sweaters and sweatshirts on or whatever. Continue to possibly sweat and feel a little bit uncomfortable. Make sure that you're safe about it. Don't go out and pass out. Again, this is all recommendations. So if you're feeling ill or anything like that, don't do this. If you're already feeling tired and worn out and exhausted, heat training is not the best thing for you. But afterwards, then you slowly rehydrate because you're allowing your body to put stress on itself, so it increases the blood volume and produces adaptations to say, hey, we're being overheated and we need to cool the body down, so I'm going to produce more red blood cells to get into the bloodstream, to get everything cooled off, to be able to sweat more and everything. So after your key high intensity sessions, this is an opportunity to do a little bit of heat training. It requires nothing but sitting in the heat. And afterwards, make sure you hydrate smartly and slowly. Don't just do it all at once and then be totally waterlogged. It kind of defeats the purpose and it could cause problems and complications. Another opportunity is during low stress workouts in the heat, limited hydration. So and when I say limited hydration, that's afterwards. So you can go out and do, if you just got like a zone 2 bike ride for an hour or 2 hours and hit the heat of the day, then go out there. You're not hammering it. You're zone 2, maybe zone 1. You're just going back, but you're soaking up the heat. You're sweating. Make sure you wear sunscreen so you don't get sunburned. But you're just out there, and if it's a nice zone 1 run for 7 miles or something like that, try to pick the heat of the day. Make sure that you're properly hydrated before, hydrate during. Don't go out there and just deprive yourself of anything during the workout or before. But after you're done, slowly hydrate over time. Take a shower, get dressed, do whatever, but don't just slam the hydration. I know you're gonna be thirsty. Maybe you go inside the air conditioning, kind of cool off a little bit. But don't, kind of taper that hydration and let the body kind of push itself to adapt and to kind of produce more red blood cells. So over time, you've got more red blood cells to work with and your body's becoming more efficient at cooling itself off by producing more blood flow to get all of the body processes under control when you're putting under stress of heat. So these are things you could do to increase the blood volume. Again, high intensity workouts, do not do the high intensity workouts in the heat. Do the work in the sauna or a hot area after the workout. Hydrate smartly after. Low stress workouts are opportunities that you can do them in the heat. I would not do any workouts over an hour and a half, 2 hours max. So make sure you can hydrate both instances before, during the workout. Afterwards, do it nice and slow over time to allow your body to produce a little bit more stress to produce adaptations to what you've just done. So those are the keys that you can do to increase the blood flow. And again, this is way before your race. This is maybe, let's say you're doing, Boulder 70.3 in August. You're doing this stuff in June, maybe early July. Opportunities to get out there in the heat and try this kind of stuff. Again, do not do your high intensity key workout sessions in the heat. It is totally kind of contradicts what you're trying to do and what you're trying to accomplish for that workout. Another way to improve your response to heat is, and again, don't do the work on heat on high intensity work or heat sessions. Don't overload heat with workload. So that's another one is, like I said, if you're already burning the candle at both ends, you're doing 10 hours of training a week, that's the most you can do. You're feeling tired, lethargic, everything. Don't do the heat training. That's not the time to do it. Add heat to supporting work for after sessions. Again, I kind of highlighted that. So don't want to do these, and that goes to improve your response to heat. You don't want to layer thin stuff, heat, and everything, and then cause your body to, you cause yourself injuries if you're doing heat training during high intensity sessions. Don't do it all the time. Like I said, periodize it. Don't do it all year long, and don't do it too soon to a race, because when you're getting close to a race, you want to do your race prep, you want to do recovery, you want to let your body kind of soak in all that adaptations. Give yourself a little window, so the fitness might be maintaining or take a little bit of a dive, but you're recovering. So when you hit your race, you're as recovered as possible. The adaptations are really sunken in. So like I said at the very beginning, this produces adaptations for overall performance in non-heat races as well. So if you're looking at altitude races, this is something you could be doing. You're thinking, well, I'm worried about the altitude at Boulder 7.3. Maybe it's, the forecast is in the 80s, so I'm not really worried about the heat necessarily, but I'm worried about the altitude. The reduction in oxygen consumption could be a major impact during your race. But if you do these types of things, you're increasing your red blood cell count to help transport oxygen to your muscles. So it kind of counteracts the effects of altitude, but it's a different mechanism to do the training to create adaptations for altitude. So while I'm putting this out there as training for heat, it's also training for altitude too. So it's opportunities. You're doing a high altitude race, and if you're doing the kind of a little bit of a heat training during the winter or early spring when it doesn't get hot outside, like I said, saunas. You could go to a room and put a bunch of heaters in, go to the bathroom, put a bunch of space heaters in there, wear a bunch of clothes after a high intensity session, just sitting there, soak it up, sweat through your clothes, and then get ready, change, shower, all that good stuff, eat a little bit, and then start hydrating over time. So I know it might be kind of new. Personally, being on my own and doing my self-coaching, whatever you want to call it, going through time, never really occurred to me. But as I've done more reading and research and listening to different coaches and doing presentations and clinics and stuff, I think this is a kind of a good high-level approach to produce some heat adaptations. And one of the recommendations is going outside, and a lot of these races you're going to be doing the run in the heat of the day. So if you're doing all your workouts, especially on the weekends, you're doing it early in the morning when it's cool, you're inside or something like that, it's not the best opportunity to do heat training. But if you do a high intensity session, maybe you can, like I said, find some space heaters. They're really cheap, throw them in a bathroom, get it really jacked up in there. So after your workout, you go in there and you just sit in there and sweat. That may be a best opportunity to put a bunch of space heaters on you or something. As always, if you do try to indoctrinate some of these, and I would not do this on every workout, I would not after every high intensity session and during every low intensity session, put heat training in there. I would not do it. I would do it 1 to 2 times a week max. Like I said, over a 4 to 5 week period maybe, and then cut it out 3 to 4 weeks before leading up to a race to make sure you're getting the adaptations you need. You're not causing harm to yourself or injuries potentially later. But these two, the sauna treatment and doing your workouts in a high heat session, like if you're doing your workouts indoors and you're doing a low intensity, put a bunch of layers of clothes on, point space heaters out at yourself, turn off the fans, and just be prepared to sweat buckets. And that is your body's way of producing adaptations for high heat scenarios. So if you find yourself being a heavy, profuse sweater, that means you're actually better geared towards doing the workouts in heat because your body is efficient and economical to cooling itself off. But on the flip side, you have to pay attention to that. While you're doing your workouts, you need to make sure you're hydrating so you don't put yourself in a dangerous situation. But always stay hydrated during the workouts, before the workouts, after high intensity. That's your time to go and just sit in the sauna. During low intensity workouts, max 2 hours like on the bike, maybe an hour and a half on the run. hydrate before, hydrate during, and then afterwards, just sit in a hot space for a few minutes, or do those workouts in a hot environment. Maybe you have a 6 mile run that's just a zone 2 run. Try to pick the hottest part of the day right after work. It's 95 degrees out there. Go out there and do a run, and just have no expectations of pace, of time, or anything. Just be safe, get your hydration in, and then afterwards, kind of soak up, and don't immediately dump all the hydration back in and get overhydrated and get that sloshing feeling. So allow some time to get some adaptations. So those are overall the kind of the tips I have for producing positive adaptations to get ready for races in the heat, or races possibly at altitude. You can do heat training that kind of covers both. And even if your race is going to be in nice temperatures anyway, and it's not at altitude, incorporating just like every other week or something like that could produce positive adaptations. That when you hit the race, you could be in a better situation. It's better than, it's more legal than blood doping, and it's kind of almost the same effect as an opportunity to get your body more efficient at delivering oxygen and cooling and everything for your body during a race. So this is kind of my viewpoint on training and getting ready for heat and altitude. So if you got any questions, as always, drop me a line, let me know, and I'd be happy to get back to you.